Streepy from Glue and Glitter, and today I'm going to show you how to make broccoli cheese soup in your pressure cooker. The pressure cooker that I'm using for this recipe is my Zen Chef multifunctional pressure cooker. Zen Chef is sponsoring this video. Thank you, Zen Chef. This multifunctional pressure cooker, you can also call it a multi-pot, which means it's a pressure cooker plus other stuff. This particular pressure cooker is also a slow cooker. You can use it for rice. There are presets for things like soups and stews, all kinds of different fun things you can do, extra functions on this pot. The extra function we're going to take advantage of today is the saute function. We're going to use it at the beginning of this recipe and at the end to make it a one-pot soup instead of having to saute things on the stove and then move them into the pot. So I just want to go over kind of your options as far as ingredients, and then we'll cut to the overhead so you can see this step by step. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is turn on that saute function and melt your vegan butter, and then saute the onions until they're translucent and a little bit fragrant. If vegan butter is not your thing, that's okay. You can use olive oil, and you can even water fry if you prefer to not use vegan butter or olive oil. That's totally fine. Choose your medium, saute those onions. Once the saute is done, things start moving pretty quickly. Now is the point where you just add the rest of your veggies and your broth. So you've got baby carrots. You can also use whole carrots and cut them up, but I like baby carrots because you can actually just add them whole to this recipe, so there's no chopping or peeling. Why chop and peel when you don't have to? The next thing you need to add is your red potatoes. You can also use yellow potatoes if you can't find red. What I would not recommend using is a russet. Russets have a thick skin and kind of a different texture from these thin-skinned potatoes. And since the potato's purpose in this recipe is to add creaminess when you puree, a russet's just not going to do the trick. So definitely go with some kind of a thin-skinned potato. And you can see I did big chunky pieces of this potato. No need to dice it up small because the pressure cooker will do all the work for you. You're also going to need broccoli. Just like the potato, really big pieces. There's no need to cut it up small. It'll cook up just fine at this size. Why cut more when you don't have to? You can even use frozen broccoli if you prefer. The last thing you're adding to the pressure cooking portion of this recipe is some water and then my favorite, broth cubes. If you don't want to use broth cubes, you can use broth paste. You could also just, instead of the water and the broth concentrate, you can just use 3 cups of your favorite vegetable or mock chicken broth, whatever works for you. So you'll pressure cook, you'll let the pressure come down naturally for a little bit, and then the important step to get a nice creamy texture, you're going to use your immersion blender to puree the soup. If you don't have an immersion blender, that's fine. You can ladle the soup into a regular blender. Just make sure that the soup cools a little bit, because hot soup in a running blender could make the blender explode, and then you'll have soup on the ceiling instead of in your bowl, and that's really not what we're going for. So once you've pureed your soup, you'll add some vegan milk, and then you will add your vegan cheese shreds. You can use any vegan cheddar shreds that you like. Depending on whether you use the immersion blender or transferred, you might have enough ambient heat left in your soup at this point to melt the cheese, but if not, you can just hit that saute button again. It'll bring a little more heat back into the pot so that the cheese will melt. I think we have pretty much covered everything, so let's cut to the overhead.